I was invited on Piers Morgan. I sat and listened to Piers and Martina Navratilova talk about sports. While I was watching, I understood that many people would find what they were saying quite credible and quite believable and understandable, and may come out the other end thinking, I agree, trans women should be excluded from female categories of sport. And so I wanted to unpick what was said.
In the year of our Lord 2026, some people still believe it's a cancelable offence to say that formerly male trans athletes should not compete against women. Well, the firestorm surrounding WNBA superstar Sophie Cunningham.
So Sophie Cunningham has kind of started all this by being interviewed and saying what she said.
Last week, Cunningham told ESPN that she supports a ban on trans athletes to protect young female athletes. Amid the resulting outcry, she has doubled down.
I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children.
I think it's really important to protect children. Who are we protecting them from? Is it that we're protecting them from the trans females who want to play in the adults team? Or is it that we're protecting them from the trans girls who want to play sports with the girls? Who are we protecting these children from? And that's the word, protection. It's like trans girls or trans women are a danger.
Well, the cost of Sophie Cunningham's common sense has been raucous booing and heckling from crowds at her game. A rival coach smugly wore a trans-branded T-shirt.
Why is that smug? A rival coach standing up for trans people by wearing trans colours, and it's smug. Why?
Pundits say Cunningham should shut up and dribble, a position they rarely take about the many stars who echo their politics. Perhaps the most sane commentary from the world of sport has come from Stephen A. Smith, who wrote, "You can support people's rights and believe biological men shouldn't compete in women's sports."
Again, it's that word, isn't it? As soon as you start saying, oh, don't worry, I support people's rights, but I also believe that biological men shouldn't compete in women's sports. And as soon as you bring in that, you're saying, I don't want trans people. Nothing to do with advantage or physical attributes. It's to do with them being trans.
I was kind of incredulous that we are still having a situation where a female athlete is vilified, booed, heckled, abused.
Vilified, booed, abused, heckled. You see, the rest of the world is not on their side, is it? It's not on the side of transphobia. The majority of people are booing and heckling and saying, no, we don't want exclusion. We want fairness in sport. And fairness means fairness for all, not just fairness for cisgender people.
Simply for stating a biological fact.
What biological fact is she stating? She's stating that we need to protect little girls and big girls from trans people. That's not a biological fact, is it?
She was not singling out trans athletes. She was only talking about male bodies in women's sports.
It is not excluding male bodies. They're not saying anybody with a male body who might have an advantage needs to be excluded. What they're saying is anybody who is assigned male at birth, regardless of your body, has to be excluded. And that's not fair. That's not what the issue is about. They're saying, they use the excuse later that it's all about power and force and size, but not all people who are assigned male at birth have that physical advantage. It's not true. The whole ban is to exclude anybody who was born with a penis. And that's just not fair.
It is a WNBA, Women's National Basketball Association, which means women, which means females, not males who identify otherwise.
Women's sport is for females. All women, all females.
What I find really sad is that she's been vilified for that and called all kinds of names, as I have been as well.
But I think, yeah, it's sad to get called names and it's sad to be vilified. Well, don't be transphobic because people don't like it. So, Martina, you get called names and now you're encouraging Sophie to act in the same way that you acted. And even though you got called names and it wasn't very nice, and so if she's now getting called names and being vilified for not being very nice, well, just be nice then. Stop being transphobic.
Most of all, that the league is not supporting this, that the league is silent.
Or maybe the league understands equality. Maybe the league understands that discrimination on the basis of gender reassignment is not okay.
Now saying only female bodies should be playing tennis.
What is a female body? Martine, have you got a female body? Because I remember when you were in the headlines for winning Wimbledon, people were like, she looks very masculine. What is a female body anyway? Do you have to have a particular amount of curves? Do you have to have a particular height? Do you have to have a particular breast size? For goodness sake.
And you do a one-time cheek swab, which takes literally 2 seconds. You just do it once in your lifetime to make sure that you are indeed a female, and that's the end of that.
Okay, so this once in a lifetime cheek swab to make sure that you are female. Let me just give you a little bit of medical background on that. What they're looking for is the SRY gene. It's a little gene that usually, most often sits on the Y chromosome. So if you have that gene, then it implies that you have a Y chromosome and therefore that you have an XY profile, which means you are a male biologically. But that little gene doesn't always sit there. Sometimes it falls off and sits on the X. So you can actually have XX with that little SRY gene sitting on it. And sometimes you can have all manner of other combinations of X and Y or missing. XXYY, XXY, and that little SRY gene sitting on a cheek swab does not say that you don't have a female body, whatever a female body is.
And people that have a problem with that, there's no ban on trans athletes. There's no ban on trans males who identify as trans, that won't identify as women who want to play sports. They can still play in the male category.
Why ever would a woman want to play in the male category? Can you imagine?
The biggest divider in sports in categories, we have 2 categories, male and female. And then you also have weight categories for different sports.
If she's so worried about the physical advantages that a trans woman might have, why don't sports categorize on weight or height or shoe size or shoulder width or lung capacity?
And when people talk inclusion, every time you include a male body in a female sport, you are excluding another female from that spot.
Now we have it. So if you let a trans woman in and the trans woman gets into the team, a cis woman didn't get into the team. Or we can't possibly have poor cis woman doesn't get into team because trans woman got into team. Never mind if they were exactly the same size, had exactly the same opportunities, had exactly the same shoe size, have exactly the same age, height, lung capacity, everything. Oh, if the trans woman got in and the cis woman didn't get in, oh, didn't.
So it is not inclusive, it's actually exclusive, because there will be fewer women, females, who have the opportunity to play sports, whether it's basketball or rugby or tennis or whatever.
So we can't possibly exclude a cis woman. We can only exclude trans women.
You know, Sophie Cunningham went out of her way in her piece on ESPN by saying, I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans. And I'm like, I never once said that. I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that with love is truth, being honest, and I want to protect young girls in a locker room.
Maybe she didn't know what she was saying, and I kind of actually think that maybe she didn't know what she was saying. And she didn't really mean to say, I hate trans people. I don't think that's what she's saying. I don't think she really meant to say, I don't think trans people should be included. But it's what she's actually saying is we need to protect girls in locker rooms. No, I didn't get that. I didn't understand that from any of the other discussions. Are we excluding trans women because they might have a male body and they might have a physical advantage because of their male body? Or is it that we don't want them in the changing rooms now? That we need to protect the cisgender people in the changing rooms in case the transgender person is a risk and we need to protect them? What are you saying? How can you hear yourself speak?
I don't understand, Martina, why every single woman in the world does not agree with that.
Well, I don't understand either. I think women that speak for inclusion and that, you know, the coaches that spoke for inclusion, they don't really think things through.
So if you actually are inclusive and you say trans women are women and they should be able to play in the women's sport, you haven't thought it through, lovey. Go and have a bigger think.
And I think as women, we want to be loving and taking care of everybody, but this is not that.
All women want to be loving and take care of people. That's quite a generalization, but yeah, okay. In general, women are considered the people who do that caring and loving and hugging and enveloping. But trans women do too, because they've got girls' brains.
Sports, by definition, is exclusive in that you have to qualify to get to a certain level.
And actually, if you have a look at the stats, The number of trans people that qualify to get to that level is very, 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 very low for many reasons, because actually being trans is very difficult. So the risk of having a trans person who excludes a cis person from that team because they got better than them is so tiny. It's so unfair, this conversation.
And in order for that to happen, those categories have to be very clear. And but also we keep saying, oh, the girls need to protest and boycott and all this. I'm sorry. If they compete, they lose. And if they don't compete, they lose also. And then they may even be disqualified from their sport, which has happened to in other sports where an athlete that complained about competing against a male, they were disqualified from their sport.
Yes, if you make a fuss, if you make a transphobic fuss in the workplace or in the local sports centre, in the street, in schools, in education, in healthcare, you get penalised for it. That's the Equality Act. And it's these two people sitting here encouraging every woman in the world to be excluding trans people. You're risking it, because people who've undergone gender reassignment, i.e. trans people, are protected. They mustn't be treated differently from somebody who hasn't undergone gender reassignment. And if you do treat them differently, i.e. if you want to kick them out of sports or kick them out of schools or kick them out of jobs, you get told off for it.
It's hard for girls to speak up. And by the way, it's adults that are pushing these rules. And it's mostly men that make the rules. And it's always men that are intruding into women's sex-based spaces.
And it really pisses me off, actually, because Martina faced discrimination for her sexuality, being a lesbian. And she faced discrimination. And it really, really annoys me when trans and gay people now try to exclude other LGBT members. Really pisses me off.
It has become a political football, which is stupid, because about 80% of people agree with this position.
Well, they don't, do they? Because we've just heard you say that people get told off and excluded from their teams for their transphobic exclusion. We've just heard about the vilification and the booing and the fact that people don't like it. And we've heard about other coaches coming on with trans-supportive T-shirts on it. So no, Martina, your 80% figure just doesn't stack up, does it?
The Minnesota Lynx head coach, Cheryl Reeve, in her first matchup against Sophie Cunningham, since Sophie Cunningham said what she said, she wore a Trans Kids Belong T-shirt on the bench, clearly making some point that somehow Sophie Cunningham had said trans kids don't belong in society or life. She never said that. She went out of her way not to say that. You know, she has the same view, I think, that you do and I do, which is absolutely, I support trans people's rights to exist and to have the same rights as anybody else.
Piers, you don't. The very fact you have to keep saying it, you seem to think that your views, your show, your guests speak the message that you think that trans rights and trans people exist and trans people deserve the same rights as everybody else. And yet all of your content is about excluding trans people and protecting women from trans females.
My problem comes when trans athletes erode the basic rights of women as women.
Why are you eroding the basic rights of women by simply applying to be in the women's team when you are a woman, you identify as female, and you have undergone gender reassignment and you want to play on the women's team? You apply to play on the team and it's up to them whether they accept you or not. It's up to them. And if there's a worry about physical advantage, then put some rules in and saying, okay, listen, you know, we do accept all women on this team. But for example, if you are 6'6" or you are this broad, or you have this size feet, then that means you have an unfair physical advantage against the majority of women on this team. But that has to apply to all women, not just trans women.
It's not that women are weaker, we're just different animals altogether from men in so many ways, but biologically, physically, so much that it's not even a fair fight. Look, I was about the only girl that could do pull-ups when I was 10 years old.
So Martina was the only girl who could do pull-ups when she was 10 years old. That's the kind of physical advantage that allowed her to go on to win Wimbledon. And yet she's allowed to because she's cis.
It's massive in sports. It's insurmountable at any level. If you're this much of a male, this much of a female, if that male at that level that finished 100th and that will finish 10th or 1st in the girls level.
What she's talking about is cisgender male versus cisgender female, and that the research shows that yes, men will win more in the strength-based sports than women do. But the thing is that the research on trans athletes says that they don't have an advantage. Trans female athletes in the research don't have this advantage that she's giving the males. So she's saying that male people have an advantage in sports, and she's saying that trans women have that same advantage, and the research doesn't back that up.
Yeah, and as I always say in this debate, there is a reason that we separate the sexes in the Olympics. And the reason is that if we made it gender neutral, then women, biological females, would end up winning barely any medal.
No one's saying make it gender neutral. Only you guys are saying we need something different. We can't have trans women. So everyone else is scrabbling around trying to find some other way. Oh, shall we make it gender neutral? No, that wouldn't be fair. Because people who have testosterone as their hormone, people who have been through a testosterone puberty and maintained their testosterone as their primary hormone would have a severe physical advantage. And so gender neutrality is not the answer. But these guys are trying to press for an answer.
But Caitlin Clark is Sophie Cunningham's teammate. She's also the poster girl, really, for women's basketball, the best player in the world, many people think. She refuses to get drawn into this. She won't say either way. What people have accused her of being hypocritical, that she should, and so on. What do you feel about that?
Well done, Caitlin Clark. I watched Caitlin's interview, and she's like, this has nothing to do with me. This is up to I'm just here to play my sport and to try and win. And win for my team and my country. I'm not here to enter these horrible politics. That's for politicians and policymakers and league leaders. Not for me. Quite right too. Well done, Caitlin.
Incredibly, some of America's biggest female sports stars, like Megan Rapinoe, completely disagree.
I think many, many people completely disagree. And I think Megan Rapinoe says it beautifully.
They're using this as a wedge issue because we love sports and, we don't want our little girls to be unsafe in sports. And it's like, unsafe from who?
Exactly. Unsafe from who? Unsafe, as soon as they use that word, isn't it? Male, biologically male, male-bodied, safety. Now I understand what they're on about.
But now we're using this as like an overarching thing, when really what we're attacking women. We're saying, if you look like this as a woman, you can play. If you look like this as a woman, there's a bill in Washington happening right now that's going to require all girls, just like full stop, to go through a sex test, an invasive, examining their genitals to see if they're a woman. It's an attack on women in society.
And she's so right. What we've seen is this argument against trans people being used wider and wider and wider against cis people too. And what is this? You have to have a cheek swab test to prove that you're a woman. You have to make sure you haven't got a male body, only a female body. What does one of those look like? It's really dangerous. And as she says, who is going to suffer here? Look at what we've been arguing about in boxing just recently. Oh, she looks like a bloke, so therefore we mustn't have her. And what does this say? What are women supposed to behave like? What do we need protecting from? What is our body supposed to look like? What chromosomes are we supposed to have or not have? This is not about fairness in sport. This is about dividing and excluding males from female lives, and it's going to just have its ramifications on all women. We've moved on from that. I'm just going to leave it there. Martina proudly shows her muscles at age 70, and she talks about fairness in sport. So she was allowed to have her fairness in sport with her big muscles and her ability to do pull-ups when she was 10 and her big muscles when she's 70. So she clearly has a physical advantage that's allowed her to win Wimbledon. And yet anybody else who might have the tiniest advantage because they're a trans woman, you're not allowed, because those poor cis women might get excluded because of it. I just think it's horrific. And I hope that what I've been able to explain to you is that if you have a think, look at the research. The research doesn't show that trans women have an advantage in women's sports. It doesn't support that. All it supports, all the stats say that we don't see trans women in sports. And so all this fuss and this nonsense and this exclusion to get rid of or exclude just a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of trans women who might have the ability or the opportunity to play in sports, and all this fuss. And we've seen what's happened in toilets. We've seen what happens in NHS wards. No one knows what to do, so they take the signs off the door. And the way that this will go is they just take the signs off the sports clubs and say, if we can't agree that trans women should be included in women's sports, then we just need to cancel the category. So I think sports just need to be really careful. My view, as it always has been, is if you make a category for women, all women are included. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and don't forget that I write about this all day, every day on my website. Come and have a visit, I'll see you there. Link is below.